Okay, welcome to a new video. This video is going to be about bringing this scene, which is V-Ray scene with using Forest Pro objects, into Unreal Engine. So there's a few things like Nanite, which has been introduced in Unreal, which is this great thing which now accepts foliage as well. So what it means is you can have pretty much unlimited foliage and unlimited static objects that aren't going to animate, like rocks and cliffs. And if you want to get more information, you can look it up. There's loads of videos, but it's very, very powerful. So this video is for me really to test and see how well I can get this scene to look in Unreal. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the geometry, which is these buildings and this fencing and the driveway, which won't be too difficult. That should work pretty seamlessly. But there is a gamma correction I want you to be aware of, which seems to be an issue. I'm sure it's the material set up by having V-Ray. But let's jump into Unreal and I'll show you what I mean with that gamma issue. Now, in order to export your objects into Unreal, you're going to have to get the Datasmith export plugins, which is on their website. Scroll down and you want the 3ds Max version of your engine. If you're not using 5.1, or you might go into view archived versions and you can get older versions there. So once you have that downloaded, let's jump into Max. So in Max, I'm going to select the geo and I'm also going to select the cameras. So then in Datasmith, I'm going to hit export selected. I'm going to go to exports here and I'm going to name this geo here and click save. Overwrite what I already exported earlier. And now we're going to jump into Unreal Engine. So once you open up Unreal, you want to go to architecture, and I used a blank scene here. Save where you want and name it the project you want. I've already created the project, so I'm going to jump into that now. Okay, now we're in Unreal. Now I'm quite new to Unreal, so I definitely will be slower in here than I am in 3ds Max. I'm still trying to get my bearings. It can be quite daunting to see all this UI, but it'd be fine because we're only using it for one purpose at the moment. So I've created a folder here called Datasmith down at the bottom. I'm going to click here and go add Datasmith file import. If you don't see this, you need to go into settings, go into plugins, type in Datasmith and enable it in here. Now, once that's enabled, you probably have to restart, but that's fine. So Datasmith, file import, and find our geo scene. So I'm going to click this geo and click open. Put it in Datasmith and click OK. These are the settings I have. I do want cameras. I don't not want lights, and I don't want animation, and I don't want to generate light UVs. So then I'm going to click import. Now we have our scene inside. One thing you're going to notice, everything looks a bit wider and there's some things that just don't look right at all. So in order to fix this, we need to fix the gamma, so the RGB curve. So what does that mean? If I jump into this material, I can go into the diffuse here, and if I scroll down, you'll see it has this gamma correction that came from Max. So I need to undo that by clicking here to reset this, and you can see straight away that looks more like it. So unfortunately, you have to do this for all your materials. I'm sure this is something in 3ds Max and transfer that could be fixed easily, but for now I just have to go into all my textures and reset this gamma correction. So I'll jump back to where I have all these textures looking the correct way. So I've gone in and corrected everything. As you see, it looks a lot better and looks a lot more like what we had in 3ds Max. You can come in here and everything looks great. Now we have to bring in the foliage, and the first thing I'm going to bring in are the trees in the background. So let's jump back into Max. So just in case anyone doesn't know how Forest Pro actually works, is it creates this forest templates that you've probably seen before if you've used it. Now what does that do? So basically if you go in here, I unfreeze them, you'll see that it populates your assets in here if you have it set up that way, or otherwise it's going to be extracted in. But here you see you have this tree, and that's the tree that's populating my scene. These are the shrubs that are populating the hedges. These are the tree patches that they use for grass, and this is the planting along the edge. So what we need to do is we need to export this tree and bring it into Unreal. So in order to do that, we need to set up a few things. So the very first thing is going back to our full scene. We need to select this, and there's a plugin that we need to use. So the plugin we're using comes from Forest Pro, so it's called FP Toolbox, and if I click and drag this in, you can get it from their site. We're going to use, this is a series of tools you can use. The only one we're interested in is the Datasmith down here. And instead of static mesh, we're going to use bounding box. So we're going to do it one piece at a time. So let's select our trees large here, and we're going to go add modifier. It's going to click that, and it's going to add it to everything that's in this Forest Pro object. So that's done. So then what we can do is I can turn off everything and bring in our templates. And what I want to do is I want to select this tree. And as you can see at the top, we have a Datasmith attribute. So let's go back here, select our Forest Pro object, which is the trees large. And we're going to go to our Datasmith up here, export selected, go to our exports, and we're going to call this large trees. Actually, let's go trees large. And we're going to click save. So let's jump into Unreal and import that now. So back in Unreal, we're going to go to Datasmith and File Import, and we're going to select our trees large and click Open. Go into our Datasmith, click OK. Again, same settings except I don't need cameras, and click Import. So once they're imported in, you can see that they come in as boxes. So that's great because let's just see if it's actually working in the right position, and now we can replace those boxes with the mesh. So now let's come back to Max, and we're going to export this actual mesh. So select the mesh. We don't need this modifier anymore, so delete that. Go to File, Export. Sorry, not File, Export. So go to Export selected here. Go to Exports, and we're going to say trees. We'll just call it tree, or a tree large. We'll just keep it tree for now, and hit save. Let's jump back into Unreal and import that object. So now we're in Unreal. Let's import our tree. File, Import, tree here, Open, and make sure it's in Datasmith and click OK. Same settings are good, and click Import. So now that we have our model in, I can check this out and see what's the issue. So first of all, you can see that something wrong with the textures, and this is probably the alpha. There's probably a number of things wrong. The branches themselves look a bit like the gamma correction is incorrect as well. So let's jump into this and check what is the issue exactly. So jump into your tree, go into materials, and the first one I'm going to check is this leaf number 1. Go to double click it, and you can see there's already error messages popping up. Let's go into our material and see what's going on. Okay, it's not letting me go in for some reason. Double click here, there we go. So there's a few things to change, but let's tackle it one at a time. Let's move all this out of the way, and this is so you can have translucent material, but we need to change this. I'm not having tin translucent. I want to change this to two-sided foliage. And then from translucent, I think we're okay with translucent. You can change this to masked if you want, or just usual opaque. I'm going to change it from masked because I always find that works a bit better with the foliage. But there's a few things you have to change first of all. So let's start with the base color and see if that's, and work our way down the chain and see what's going on. So move this out of the way. Let's find out where the base color is. It's over here, I believe. Yeah, so we have two textures here. Let's see what's going on. So let's double click this, and let's just start going through them and see if they're correct. So this one is fine, it looks like. That's good. We're going to go in here. This is probably okay too. Double click this. That's fine. I'm just trying to find the ones that are seriously not correct. And this one might be okay. Let's double check it. That's fine. No, you see down here that gamma correction is making a mistake. So click that. Hit save. Let's close these ones. Move along. And this bump map obviously is just not correct, because you can just, the colors just don't look correct. So let's go into that one. And normal map, world normal, it is okay, but again, the gamma correction is a bit funky. So there we go. That looks a bit more acceptable. So again, we can do this. Now, this one is definitely causing a few issues, and this is the opacity. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to hit Control, and we're dragging this into the opacity mask here instead of the opacity there. And then we also need to change this, because clearly a mask shouldn't look like that. So let's go into this and change this. So it thinks it's a normal map. It obviously isn't. So we need to change this to a mask, and we're going to get an error because we need to change this to, what is it? It's, let's see, it should be linear, isn't it? Or it should be a mask, obviously. So what we need to do is we need to grab this texture and go down here and say this is actually a mask. And that fixes that. Just to let this know, oh, by the way, this is now a mask, and this is starting to make a bit more sense. So we actually don't need this, I think. Yeah, so now we don't need that anymore, because that was only when we were using tin translucency down here. So we don't need that anymore. Then if I hit save, let's see how we're getting on. So hit save. So now back here, you can see this is starting to look a bit better, but there's two different types of leaves. So now I'm not going to show you, but you just need to do the exact same thing to the other leaf material. So jumping back to our model, I just went in and fixed all those textures on that model, just like that. Now we have a beautiful tree with great leaves and it looks fantastic. Go in here, nice bark, and everything looks to be working well. Now we don't need this in the scene anymore, so I can delete that. And what we're going to do is that we're now going to replace these boxes with that tree we just fixed. So here's our geometry. We have our tree here. Now I'm going to make sure everything's saved. So we're going to apply Nanite to this, which is pretty much going to make it that we can have a much more optimized scene and pretty much have limitless foliage. So in order to enable this, you need to click Enable Nanite Support over here. And with foliage, you want to check Preserve Area. Click that. And then we want to hit save, and I think that's all the settings we need. Yep. So hit that, hit save, and now this will be converted to Nanite. So I can X this and go back to our scene. So now back in our scene, I'm going to select this object. I'm going to hit Control C to copy it, and I'm going to go into where this object is. So going into here, I know that's in trees large, geometry, this is our object. So up here, just before I do anything, I'm going to hit save all. Okay, go in here and Control V. And there we have our tree. And what we're going to do now is we're going to select this and this. And before I actually do that, I'm going to rename this and we're going to say new tree, just so I know. So select this, right click, go to Asset Actions and go to Replace References. Then select the one you want to keep, and the one you don't keep is going to get deleted. So select that, delete, and just like that, all of our objects have been replaced with these trees. Now I'll give it a second just to prepare the shaders. And one thing you want to do is, I want to show that this is Nanite. So if I go lit and I go to Nanite visualization and I hit mask, you'll see anything red is not Nanite and anything green is. So now this is completely optimized and we can just come in here and it will update as we get in and closer. If I change this to triangles, you'll see it gets more dense as you go in. It might be too difficult to see from the distance we're looking at, but as we go away, it will make those polygons larger and larger. So you can see there's a bit of some holes in here, but don't worry, you won't see that in the scene. If I deselect it, it'll be fine. Now we just need to do that for the other foliage. So if I go back to my max scene, the next scene I'm going to import is the hedge. And I'm not going to show everything I'm doing again because it's just rinse and repeat. So I'll jump back in once I have the textures fixed, the thing imported, and I'll show you just replacing the object. So I've done the same with the side planting. I've imported it. I've enabled Nanite, where if you highlight over here, you can see Nanite enabled equals true. So again, what we need to do is select here and here, right click, Asset Actions, Replace References, select the one you want to keep, and delete. And there we have our planting. So one thing I wanted to do, which is something slightly different than bringing in just a singular forest ones, is with this forest plugin, with forest geometry, it's actually a preset. So it has multiple versions in it. So like these three are then populating here. So you need to export each one of these out and then bring it in. And which I've done, I've brought them in, and I wanted to show you that this is what it comes like. And you can see there's different variation boxes here, but it's pretty much the same thing we do. So what I want to do is replace this version 1 with version 1 here, version 2 with version 2, and version 3 with version 3. So let's do that now. So now let's replace each object. So version 1 with version 1, right click, Asset Actions, Replace, keep the one I want, which is V1. Click this, delete, and you can see it's after replacing those. So let's do it for the rest. Quite satisfying to see that work straight away. So again, same thing, replace references. I want to keep version 2, delete, and last but not least, version 3, go to Asset Actions, and then we want replace, keep the version 3, and do the same, delete. And just like that, we have our hedge, and it looks great. Now let's, again, if I do lit and Nanite, I can do mask, and you can see they're all Nanite, excuse me, in the background, and including I'm after doing this hedge here if I haven't shown it already. So looking pretty good. The two last things are I need to bring in the fence here, but I'll just bring that in the same way I did the geo here. And then instead of bringing in the grass the same way I did the geo, what I'll do is I'll bring in the grass from 3ds Max, but then I'm going to use the foliage tools in Unreal to paint on this surface. Okay, so let's do that now. So I've imported in the fence, and now the very last thing is to start painting in the grass, which I've also imported. So I have these 3 objects here, which are all Nanite as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and go to foliage. Then I'm going to add all these 3 in. So dragging there, dragging that one, and dragging that one. So once I have these added in, I can just select, say, this one, and I can just start painting in. Now you can individually change all these, but for the moment what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these, and then I'm going to change, see here it says multiple values, I'm going to make that one value, let's say of 1000, and if I increase that, it basically means the density will be higher. So let me change that, let me undo that and change this to like 50, and as you can see the spacing is wider. So I'm going to make sure that's on 1000, or actually maybe even 2000. It might be excessive, it depends on the PC you're using, but Nanite should save us for most cases. I also want scaling to be free, and I'm going to put everything, actually if I do uniform and I put this to about 0.8 and this to 1.2, just so there's variation in the scale. Okay, once I've changed that setting, I'm probably happy to start painting, but I kind of want to hide some things so it doesn't get in the way. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to turn off, not geo all the way, the buildings, and probably the fence as well, if I can find it. Okay, where is it? Let me hide, there it is. So unhide the fence, and then we can start painting in. So I'm just going to start painting in everywhere around here. Keep painting along. It's after painting on top there, but we'll fix that in a while. So you can see it's after painting on top where that fence is. That's fine for the moment, but obviously we don't want the end. So I'm just going to start painting this in, and I'll delete later where I don't want. So if I go into my camera here, V-Ray camera, I can start painting in the foreground just to make sure we don't miss anything. I'm going to paint in here, and what I'll do is I'll erase where I don't need it afterwards, because I don't know if we even see beyond that, but we'll paint just along here, but we only care about this view here. And we're just going to start painting in where we need it and where we don't. And obviously we don't need to go too far because we're not going to see in there. So I'll cut back to when I have the grass correct. And also in here, you can also go to erase, and you can start erasing where you don't want it. But it's pretty much painting on where you want it and erasing where you don't want it. So I'm going to cut back to where I have it to exactly where I want. So I've gone in and painted all the grass. I've only painted it where I need to. And one thing I'm going to do is show my FPS, and I'm currently going still at a strong 80 to 90 FPS, even with all this foliage. And I'm sure if I painted in the rest, it would still be pretty solid because of Nanite, really. Now, if I go into my camera view, that's the last thing we need to change. So if we go into V-Ray, you can see it's overblown, but you can see we're getting very similar results. The power though of, let's say if I go into cinema character here, is like we can move around way more easily while this is all live. It's real-time engine, so it's pretty handy to be, say if you wanted to show clients instead of like, you know, V-Ray you have to wait. I know V-Ray have their chaos engine Vantage, but this is just another alternative you can use, and it seems to be getting better and better every year. So the last things now we're going to do is in our actual camera, our V-Ray camera that we set up, we're going to do some edits here in our post, let me look down, our post-process volume. We're going to do some changes here and try and get a look and feel that we like, and then that'll be the end of this video. Okay, so now we're going to do some edits in Unreal. Now, I'm quite new to this, so I'm going to be kind of guessing around here, but what I know to do now is we need to uncheck this because I don't want auto, I want to not uncheck it, I want to change this from auto to manual. I also want to go down to the very bottom and make sure that our post process is affecting the entire world, which it is, infinite in bounds. That's good. So then that means I can go up here and I should be able to change this exposure and we'll get something we like. So let's go, if I go 1, it's going to look like that. That's not too bad. 1.2, it's too bright. Let's go 0.8, something I like. And that looks pretty good. Like a bit overblown here, but that might be the materials themselves and how dense this is. I've made it. So again, this is just an experiment. It doesn't have to be perfect. So let's go back to our processing volume and we can change some things down here. So chromatic aberration, I'm not sure if this would actually work. That's very intense. So let's bring that way down. But we get that kind of natural effect. We can add some bloom. But you can see in here there are some great quick changes. And I guess a big advantage here is it's all in real time. So I'm going to go through a few settings and then I'm going to finish up on this video with just the render. So now that you have this, also one big advantage to this is you can hit play here and you can jump right into our scene. Now obviously I don't mind if I back here. I'm not doing this scene for this exactly, but I wanted to show you that you can do this. So like you can fly around here in real time and see your scene, which is really helpful. And you can go up here, you can check the planting out, see if it's to your fancy. There's the hedge. And it's just a really powerful way to observe your scene and see it in a different light. So, and then you can render from this angle. So after fumbling about and looking at the post process, I've come up with an image. I'm not sure if it's it's not going to be 100% like the one in 3ds Max, but it just shows you how you can bring your Max scene into Unreal. I've gone in here and I've changed some things, the exposure -5. I've brought the aberration intensity all the way down because it's just too much. You could put this up to like 0.1, but I think it'd be maybe you can see a bit of halo in coloring here. Then we can go down. I brought the vignette in, so this just creates that kind of shadow on the lens. Then I've gone to the focal distance. I've changed a bit, and going down, nothing much here, but it's a lot of options in here that you can change your image and get a lot of powerful results straight away. And it's an advantage, like it depends on the power of your PC as well. You need a good GPU. So I hope this lesson has been helpful at least. And I guess the question's for you, if you know Unreal Engine better than me, one thing I'd love to know is how do you paint foliage without affecting other objects? Because I kept painting it on top of like the building here. So if you know that, let me know. It'd be great. It'd also be helpful to other people watching the video. And if you have any other Unreal tips that you want to just put in the comments, please do, because it helps me and it helps other people. So I'll see you in the next video, and yeah, enjoy your day.